In this video, we're going to go over the math basics of a mortgage. I've created this template here, which should be linked in the video or in Teams, so that you can go in and experiment. You'll actually see down below that it has, when you open it up, it'll have two tabs because this is the same document that we used in a previous video. So when you open it up, it might open up to the debt tab. You just need to click the mortgage tab, and then you'll be able to use this for experimenting here. The main purpose of this video is to help you understand the underlying math that the creditors or lenders who are going to lend you money to purchase a home are looking for. And so there's some terminology that I'll have to explain and some of the math along the way. But some of the really complicated math is just built into this spreadsheet. So here we go. First of all, the first thing before you have a mortgage is you're going to have to actually research what you can afford to purchase. And this has to do with a bunch of different factors. One is the actual price of the house itself. So whatever the value of the home is going to have a big impact on what you can afford and what the down payment is, of course. But then the other part is how much money can you put down right away? Usually when you're buying your first home, you won't have the ability to put a 20% down payment, which is sort of the conventional loan path that doesn't require some additional costs to it via insurance to insure that loan. So on a $300,000 loan, that would be 60 grand. And most first-time home buyers just don't have that kind of money. So many times first-time home buyers are in a range of saving up a down payment of 3 to 5%. In this case, 3% would be about $9,000. And as you can see in this calculator, the less money you put down, the higher the monthly payment gets. So if you were able to somehow have a down payment of $100,000, the payment would reduce significantly. That's because you're borrowing less money, so you have less to pay back. And this is a reason why many people choose to refinance their loan later, which means to take out a new home loan, a new mortgage on their own house and pay off their old one. And it's simply because they owe less now, and by the fact that they owe less, when they take out that new mortgage, they can significantly reduce their monthly payment. The other core factors that are going to determine how much you pay per month are the interest rate and the term, how many years it's going to take to pay off. The most common home mortgage is a 30-year fixed rate term. You can see the difference between 3.5% and just 1% higher is a difference between almost $170 extra per month, which can add up to a lot over 30 years. So getting a lower interest rate will have a major impact on what you can actually afford to purchase. And one of the major factors on what interest rate you'll get is your credit score, which is the previous video. The term of the loan in years, in other words, how long you're going to have to pay out this loan in order to pay it completely off, is another determining factor on your monthly payment. If you're going to pay it off more quickly, then you have to pay more per month. And if you're going to pay it off over a longer period of time, you're going to pay less per month. However, it's not a linear thing because this is interest, there's this exponential change. So I'm going to show you exactly how this works. So in this case, if I have a 3% down payment of $9,000 and a 4% interest rate, over 30 years, my monthly payment is $1,389, so a little bit less than $1,400. If I were to change this down to 15 years, so half the amount of time, my payment does go up a lot, but it doesn't double. Even though it's half as long, it doesn't double because I'm paying off the principal faster, so less interest is accruing, therefore I end up paying less money. Also, in most cases, the interest rate on a 15-year loan is actually less because there's less risk because you're loaning out that money for a shorter period of time. And so you might see a lower interest rate, which would further reduce that payment and making the loan cost less money. This calculator actually has two sections here. So you have interest rate in years here, but then you also have, and I can't point my finger all the way over there, over in this section here, you have it again so that you could compare what's the difference between an interest rate of this versus this, or what's the difference between if it's a 30-year loan or a 20-year loan, and you can see and kind of experiment what the cost differences are and do a side-by-side comparison. Right here in the middle, I have this acronym LTV that is used in the mortgage industry, which means loan to value, which means what is the percentage of the loan compared to the value of the home. So in this case, this home is worth $30,000, but you're doing a down payment of $9,000, which means you're not actually taking out a loan for the full amount. You're taking out a loan for 97% of that full amount. The ideal threshold to getting a home mortgage is 80% for loan to value. There are mortgages available if you are unable to put a down payment to get you to that 80% loan to value mark, but they typically come with an additional cost called PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, which you are forced to pay, which gives the lender security in case something were to happen and you were unable to continue paying off your mortgage. All right, one of the things that's not found in this calculator, but I put a little acronym description here, is DTI, which is debt to income. Debt to income actually looks at how much income you make in gross before taxes and all that every month, and then uses a ratio to how much debt you have to pay off. So it adds the mortgage amount that you're going to have to pay off, any credit card bills, any student loans. It adds those all up and it comes up with a percentage. What percentage of your income is going to pay off debt? There is a threshold that is set that changes based on what loan it is, but there is a threshold. And so if you have a bunch of outstanding credit card debt or a bunch of outstanding student loan payments, it will reduce what you will be qualified for by lenders as far as a loan, because those are added into the mortgage when they're calculating that. When it comes to debt to income ratio, it's around 43% is typically the ceiling that lenders will actually give you a loan, and they're usually looking for significantly lower than that. If you can get below 36%, then you'll be in a good position to qualify for the best loan offers. I need to mention that I also put in here that there's a property tax that's going to be included. None of these things right here include property tax because that varies by jurisdiction. So I put it in here just so that you know that when you are paying your mortgage, one of the things you're going to be paying on your home is a property tax. And you can look up what the property tax rate is in your area and enter in the percentage there. Lastly, let me talk about this section here, which is an amortization schedule, if I'm saying that right. Basically, it shows you paying off this loan over the course of that full time, and you'll see that when the time runs to zero, it turns red, which means these aren't applicable to your loan product. So in this case, at month 240, this loan, it's a 20-year loan, it's paid off, so all this stuff down here doesn't make any sense. And in the other case, and with this 30-year loan, it goes all the way to the bottom here, and then you get to year zero and you've paid it off. What this payment amount right here is calculated to do is to change your monthly payment depending on the parameters you put in. What's the interest rate? How many years? What's the home value? What's the down payment I'm going to put on this home? And so it'll change what your payment is. Though the column right here changes how much equity you have in that home. Equity would be basically kind of the opposite of loan to value. So if you have 3% down, it means that you own 3% of that home. That's your equity in that home. The more equity that you have in the home, when you go to sell it or go to refinance, you have more options and can achieve like lower rates and reduce your monthly payment and do a bunch of things like that. So it's good to have equity. This calculator calculates your equity based on if your home value stayed exactly the same the whole time, which is not what actually happens. Typically, the markets fluctuate, but over a long period of time, especially over the course of 30 years, you can expect that value to climb quite substantially. So this is more to give you sort of a picture of how different sort of payment amounts can change your equity and how quickly you can accrue that. One of the things I want to show you through this chart is how equity builds slowly at the start and much faster at the end. And that's because when you're first getting started, you owe a large loan amount. That means the interest on it is much, much higher. So as you are paying it off, you're mostly paying the interest. But as the loan balance gets lower and lower and lower, you don't owe as much. There's not as much interest accruing. So when you make that payment, most of it is actually paying down the loan itself. And so from here, from that first monthly payment, you go from 3% to 3.15%. So a difference of owning 0.15% more equity in that home. But if you get to the last month on here, you can go from 99.57% to 100. That's 0.43. That's nearly triple, not quite, but almost triple the amount of equity with the same exact amount of money. So towards the end of a loan cycle, you actually are gaining equity faster than at the beginning, which goes to the next point. If you are able to afford even just a little bit more, and here's how you can sort of change this. How much more would I have to pay to change my loan from 30 years to 29? And all you have to do is enter in 29 and calculate it. And here you can see that if you could afford $23 extra a month, you could shave off 1 year off of that loan. And so what if I wanted to shave 5 years off of it? And now we're talking the difference between 1306 to 1456. So you're shaving 5 years off, you're paying about $150 extra a month. And if you can afford it, you can greatly increase the amount of equity that you gain in that early stages. I want to show you the difference between paying that extra $150 a month in terms of equity. So when it comes to those first 5 years, if you're just paying the standard amount, 5 years would be 60 months. We get down here to 60 and we're at 12.99%, basically 13% equity. And that's assuming the housing prices stay flat, which obviously don't, they're gonna go up. What if I change this to a 25-year cycle? How much of the home will I own after 5 years now? So let's scroll down to 60 months. And now instead of owning 13%, I owe 16%. And the difference between those two numbers, 12.99% and 16.27%, is close to $10,000 difference. So if you are able to afford even just a little bit extra per month, it does make sense in those early months to pay that additional off because you'll be gaining so much more equity faster, which means the cost of the loan over the life of the loan will greatly reduce. Okay, the last thing I just did was make it so that you can actually calculate the total cost of the loan depending on how many years you take to pay it off. So if I wanted to compare my total costs between doing the same thing, paying it off over the course of 30 years versus 20 years, I can take a difference in the monthly payment here and see that, oh, it's going to cost about $380 more per month. But if I was able to afford that, how much would I save over the full course of that loan? So if you go all the way to the bottom here, it will add up all of those monthly payments at the very bottom and show you the total cost of this loan paid over 30 years is $470,000. That's on a loan of just under $300,000. So the cost of that loan is over 170 grand. Versus if you were to pay it over 20 years, you would save $67,000. If you were able to budget and pay for more, you actually save a ton of money over the course of that loan. Money that's just basically going into your pocket. And it's not an insignificant amount of money. $67,000 is a lot of money to save. So whenever you get to the stage where you're looking to purchase a home, as you're making those plans, if you take into consideration some of the math behind it, you can save yourself a ton of money over the long term and open up more options for you to save additional money through refinancing or other options.